Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so today's the day. Sitting on Night Night, my 42-year-old childhood blanket, is something a lot of viewers have been waiting to see. Now, today's the 19th, and I want to say I got this watch on the 7th, and there's a video coming that I started making on the 10th, and I take a real sort of detailed look at this watch. Now, before I open it, let me just give credit to Kirk Bristol and Black Woman Gamer for getting really close to guessing what's in this box. And also an extra special credit goes to John McManus, who probably spends more time on my channel than I do. He came so close to guessing what's in this box, and actually his guess is probably more logical than what's actually in here. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so you know it's an oyster bracelet. Couple extra links there, and P cereal. So that comes from the period that I consider a sweet spot. So Z's, M's, D's, Y's, P's, and some A's, I think, have all the characteristics that I look for. So we'll set this aside, these books. And this is it. All right, so as you can see, P serial 16710. Now, you can see on here, I was strategically covering up the reference number on here. It says 16710LN. So I think this was born in all black. And I'll go into some detail on why I went for the all black. There are two reasons, but that's kind of another video. So, all right, so it's a P serial Luminova holes case solid end-link bracelet. So this is what I think is the sweet spot. All right, so let's talk about the title of this video, which is the dirtiest, nastiest, cheapest Rolex in Japan. Well, when it comes to this reference, link in the description to Rakuten, and this was actually the cheapest 16710 in Japan. It was hundreds of dollars less than, well, the second cheapest one. And actually, if you look at that link, you'll probably see an A serial all black. I think it's around 999,000 yen from, I want to say the store is Belmond. And that was a contender. And in fact, it was kind of funny because I actually saw that Belmond watch when I was in Nakano. And I called about the watch and asked a question and didn't like the answer. And so I actually passed by this watch because, the cheapest, I thought that's, you don't want to go for the cheapest. Something might be wrong with it, right? But actually, this was sort of perfect, to be honest, because, and here's where I get into explaining the title of this. Okay, so it was the cheapest GMT Master 2 in Japan. And it was probably also the dirtiest. And you'll see in that video that's coming up when I clean the bracelet, it's clear that it hadn't had a good cleaning. And let's talk about why it was the cheapest. And you can see, it's got some scratches around the bezel, quite a few actually, and it's got a nick or two on the glass. But here's why this, I think, was so cheap. Now, obviously, it's got box, no papers. And I think you don't find papers a lot here in Japan because I don't think people who flip their watches really want their name on it. I think likely people write their name on the warranty card, and and then when it comes time to flip it, they just, would rather make a few less dollars than have that personal information. So that's my guess. But it's got the hang tags and the box. And all right, so now typically in Japan, a gray market will get a watch and they'll have it serviced from their independent, somebody that probably works with them, and not Rolex, but just an independent. And they'll polish the watch and they'll make it look good and whatnot. And to the untrained eye, it looks great. But to the collector, it's got that third-party polish, and the chamfers could be screwed and the bevels could be screwed, and so it looks good if you don't really know what to look for, but it's something a lot of collectors would I think shy away from. All right, so when they do that, they tack on a price, right? They tack on a little extra for that. Because, it looks good, right? It looks all minty. And they didn't do that with this watch. Now, what I think happened is they got this watch and they tacked on some money and then they put it up for sale. And it was cheap because this really isn't what the typical Japanese person would go for, because you see some scratches on the bezel and it's got a ding here and there on the case and on the glass as well. So it looks used, okay? It looks used. And that's not something a typical Japanese person, I think, would go for. They sort of go for the minty piece. So they didn't really crack the case. They didn't polish it. And they got it. They tacked on a low price, and I guess it was to see if there were any takers. And obviously there was a taker, me, because this is exactly the kind of piece that I would go for, because they didn't polish it. And you'll see details later, but I don't think this has been polished. My guess is that this was purchased new. The guy had it for, well, let's see, it's a P0, so this is a 2000 piece. And my guess is that he had it for 18 years or so and sold it. And it possibly has never had a service. Now, they didn't polish it, and there's no record of the history of the watch. But it looks to me to be unpolished. So I think the guy either never had it serviced or he had it serviced through Rolex, and that is the reason the polish is if it has been polished, you can't really tell. So again, I'll really go into the details and you'll be able to see it without the bracelet in the next video. But they didn't do any work on it. All right, so they got it, they put a low price on it, and they set it out. Now, if this hadn't have sold after a year or two, then they probably would have taken it, off the market, and they would have paid somebody to give it an overhaul and a polish, and they would have tacked on a couple $1,000s to that. Now, one of the reasons it might not have had that treatment off the bat is because of this. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this, there's a few nicks on, there you go, you can see on the look about around between the 5 and the 6 indices, there are some nicks on the glass. And that's not something that they could really, an independent, I don't think, could deal with that. And they'd have to get an aftermarket part for that. And so either that or maybe the bezel had scratches and they'd have to source another cleaner bezel, and that would have added to the expense as well. So basically, I think what they did is they got it, they thought, okay, let's price it as low as we can go just to see if there are any takers. And if not, then we'll overhaul it and polish it, and in my opinion, destroy it, but make it look all nice and stuff, and tack on a premium, and then that would probably draw the typical Japanese buyer. So yes, it is something I really like. And we'll go into why I decided to get it. But well, I don't know, you guys know why I decided to get it, because I love this watch. I mean, this is my favorite watch, and I love my Pepsi, but it's sort of a safe queen, and I don't really enjoy wearing it. And so I wanted a watch. I wanted a GMT that I could really use and be comfortable with. And so, honestly, I probably would have gone for this watch even if it had had a clear, aftermarket polish, but I don't think it has. So, now that doesn't mean I'm gonna make this a safe queen either. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna play with the bezel. I'm gonna change the inserts. I'm gonna really be cavalier and just enjoy this watch, and that's what I got it for. And there you have it. I mean, should I take it off the pillow? I think so. All right, so do I need to put on a white glove? Perhaps I do. I've got one on the ready right here. Can't have fingerprints on it, right? I'm showing you guys the lugs. Okay, now again, you'll see more detail in the future, but look at the lugs, look at the chamfers. I'm thinking no polish or Rolex polish. All right, so let's see. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's kind of scratched on the bezel, and that is okay, because I plan on taking this into Rolex at some point, and let's just say I have a few tricks up my sleeve when I do that. In fact, I'm really looking forward to getting it looked at by Rolex, and I never feel comfortable with a watch until I sort of get the stamp of approval from Rolex that everything's on the up and up, and it runs perfectly. I mean, it's really, really accurate, and so it's kind of ridiculous to take it in, but I don't know the service history, and yeah, it's just sort of like what I do, and I can sort of breathe a sigh of relief when I get it back, and have the card and the service papers, and everything's in my name, and yeah, it's sort of like I know everything's legit. So anyway, there you go. So I absolutely love this watch, and I wear it, and that's not something I can say for the Pepsi. That Pepsi's role is to stay beautiful. So, take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.